in the presence of the Lord. Thank you. Thank you. Entertain,
Move
okay,
for approval in the minutes.
we move in. We got a second on those minutes?
Second.
Probably moving second. Any questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, would you please say aye?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're down to acceptance and dedication of rights away. Who's gonna handle that one? You, Mr. Bucci?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
So the first one would be acceptance of maintenance over rubber curbing within the SCDOT right of way. It is a requirement of Norfolk Southern Railroad that they have rubber curbs adjacent to their right of way. So that's why we have about 200 linear feet in that location. Item number 2 is the CCSD West Ashley Campus Subdivision Dedication Package. Goes from Sanders Roads to West Wildcat Boulevard and includes a roundabout in that location for the West Ashley School. And then the last 2 items are in relation to Matt Fountain's stormwater project, his drainage improvement project in Windermere. I could let him speak to that item if he has anything to add.
Sure, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a temporary construction easement in the school district parking lot, gratis easement, just with the restrictions that we work only within times they are not in session and that we restore everything to located between the 2 properties.
You're freezing and breaking up on my side.
Yeah.
Matt,
Great.
you want to try and speak again? I think you were getting better towards the end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me try without video.
No,
And
you're
so,
good. You're good there. Yeah.
Good. Good. Good.
Okay, great. So the first is a temporary construction easement in the CCSD parking lot, gratis easement with the restrictions that we only work when the school is not in session, basically summer session. And then we restore everything to pre-existing condition following the work, which will be some substantial asphalt reconstruction in that parking lot. This is with the intent to try to preserve some of the trees in the buffer space between the school and the adjacent properties at the request of TRC.
Okay. So we're gonna take all these all 4 items simultaneously. Chair entertains.
So, Mr. Chairman, the 4th item on my note is a maintenance acceptance with DOT for the DOT encroachment permits on the Windermere project. It's mostly maintaining the culverts we're installing, which is typical. The only item of note is that we will be taking over the Culbertson right-of-way, the whole section of the road. We are placing a culvert basically under that whole section of road, so it's not unexpected. It's a very small road in front of the school there.
Okay.
I have graphics if it's helpful, but happy to share or not share.
Anybody want to see the graphics?
Good.
Okay, I'm good too. They were mailed out to us. Chair entertain a motion on these 4 items, E1 through 4.
Move we take them together and move for approval. Second.
Any questions on items 1 through 4 as explained? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Temporary encroachments, it's not action steps, but are there any things unusual that seems to be out of the norm?
Mr. Chairman, I could take this one. No, it's driveways, some fence encroachments, as well as some irrigation. So nothing out of the ordinary.
All right, thank you. We accept that as information. On to wow, we're on the item I. I mean, we have an update on public service. H1. Who's gonna handle that?
Sorry, it wouldn't come off mute. I can take that. Just some quick updates. We have the new garbage trucks out running as of tomorrow, along with the new knuckle booms. And we have started the repair of the historic column. So that should be getting, I would say that's done by the end of this week. And then the Broad Street project is moving along. We're going to go out and walk that next week, myself and Edmund. We have the LiDAR scan done, and we're just going to go out and confirm everything, and then we'll be getting that out to bid shortly.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Altop? Listen, Mr. Altup, we appreciate what you do. Anytime the director update is short, that means the job's getting done.
That's right.
So congrats to you and your team. I-1, revisions of 2020 storm design manual. Mr. Keen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm just going to introduce Ron Bucci, who will go through a brief presentation regarding these manual amendments. I just wanted to make a couple of notes. Number one, when the Stormwater Design Standards Manual was enacted in 2020, and the chair certainly knows this, the idea was from the beginning that we would update the manual every 5 years. So we are at this point proceeding with what was always anticipated, which was that we would enact the manual, we would work with the manual, we would experience the manual, and we would make adjustments along the way as we saw fit based on our experience with the manual. I will say that we feel like more frequent refinements to the manual are in order, and Ron will likely speak to this. So that's number one. Number two, over the past 6 to 9 months, we've had several meetings with private engineers who are typically our customers using the design standards manual. We've had several meetings with them to talk through these amendments that Ron will present to you this evening. And that feedback has been hugely helpful. Our most recent meeting with them was a few weeks ago, and very technical conversation, but there seemed to be consensus that what was being proposed would be helpful, that we should proceed with them, but that there was also consensus that more frequent refinements to the manual would be helpful. I just want to mention and highlight something Ron will mention, which is the idea with these amendments is that we keep the high standards that we have here in Charleston, which are so important because we're a unique city when it comes to flooding and stormwater, that we keep those high standards. However, that we make achieving that high standard simpler for our applicants and for our staff. That our standards are less ambiguous, they're clearer, that we can more consistently and predictably enforce this manual. So again, the emphasis is keep the high standards, but let's simplify this so that achieving those standards is a simpler process for our applicants. We've had a chance since we've been digging into this to use the potential new manual or the amended manual based on what you'll be presented tonight. We've had a chance to test it with a couple of sites and have found that it's extraordinarily helpful. So we think this is an important set of amendments that will help everyone, including staff and our applicants, work with this manual. So we strongly recommend it to you. And I'd like Ron to have a moment to go through these slides that he's prepared for the committee so that you can vote on it. Thank you.
All right,
And Ron, before you get started, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to say just
Sure. Go ahead, Mr.
I really do want to compliment Tim Keene and Ron Bucci and other staff that have really rolled up their sleeves, dug into this. Again, Tim hit the nail on the head. This is not meant to lessen or reduce our stormwater requirements but to make them more user-friendly, establish cleaner and clearer lines of communication and expectations. So I really want to compliment them on a lot of hard work that went into this. And I think this has been a very thoughtful and organized approach. So I just wanted to take a personal minute to compliment staff for a job well done, in my opinion.
Mr.
Thank-
Bucci.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Tim. Really appreciate that. And obviously, like you both said, I want to thank everyone else who helped with this manual as well. You know, we worked closely with Stormwater and Matt's team, as well as other team members under Development Services, to make sure we're all achieving that common goal. So with that being said, hopefully you're seeing the full slide presented on your screens. And if so, I'll just jump
Yes,
right
Ron,
into
we
it.
see.
Okay, great. Okay, so just a quick agenda. I'm going to go over where we sit with the current manual and then kind of touch on the purpose of the revisions, why we are making revisions after 5 years of implementing the 2020 manual. Then I'll go over the details of the manual revisions with you all and then open it up for any questions you may have. So with the current manual, like I just said, it was implemented in July 2020. It really put a heavy emphasis on reductions in discharge rates and volumes, especially for those areas that we know flood within the city, which there are several. It stressed the importance of accounting for potential sea level rise, which has been occurring, and making sure that our city is more resilient to handle that. We have additional requirements specific to publicly dedicated systems that we would have to take over and maintain. We are looking to, in my opinion, a very important aspect is to prevent any adverse impacts to downstream and adjacent properties for any development or even city project. And then we had a bunch of additional technical procedure documents developed to kind of clarify the more difficult aspects of the manual and add more information to that so the applicants can get a better understanding. So that's where we were in 2020 when we initiated these changes. And now 5 years later, just like with any manual, you have to refine and take a good look at everything and make sure it's accomplishing the goal that we're trying to accomplish. So with that, the purpose of the revisions would be to reduce the complexity and the requirements like you all touched on, but maintain a very high standard to help reduce flooding in specific areas where it's needed. Focus flood reduction requirements on larger parcels because those are the ones that will have a larger impact to the watershed as a whole. Attempt to remove the ambiguity that is present within the manual, which we'll touch on a little later. Create optional simplified approaches to address complex requirements. I'll do a deep dive of that, but giving people options is, always helpful in my opinion. Incorporate those technical procedure documents that we developed into the manual so that they're included in the manual and not just references elsewhere. And then create a plan to revise the manual on an annual basis, which what Tim was getting at, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, communicating that with the development community and people at the city to make sure, again, are we accomplishing the goals that we are looking to accomplish? So now I'm going to dive into some of the detailed revisions. These revisions go with the permitting process that we have. So one of the revisions we made is a construction activity application. Basically, you accompany that with your projects. We are only going to require that for land disturbance greater than 1/2 acre. Previously, if you were within 1/2 mile of a coastal receiving water body, we would require that, but that sometimes had us looking at sites that were 0.1 acre of disturbance, very little benefit for us to have from a flooding standpoint. So we kind of took that out and didn't want to do that detailed review of something that's very small and non-impactful, I guess I would say. The state does require land disturbance greater than 1 acre. So we are still more strict than what the state requires because of our unique situation and flooding that we have in the city. So we still want to make sure we're maintaining that strict standard. And even if you do not require construction activity application, we still are checking that all state and federal permits are being obtained as applicable. And this other one is just a revision to the expiration of city approval. We previously had this as 12 months. We moved that to 24 months. So if a project doesn't start construction within 24 months, you just have to reapply and get a new approval. Honestly, this just saves a lot of paperwork and really wasn't accomplishing what we were hoping it would accomplish. Just the time it takes to document and go through the process of, hey, you didn't start your project in 12 months. Now you need to submit another permit. We wanted to just remove that from the equation. So now we're getting into a little more of the meat of it. So this is the redevelopment requirements. So the current requirement reads that the requirements under this section, which requires reduction in flooding, must be met if the parcel has more than 20% of its land as impervious and improvements over the past 5 years exceed 50% of the total site value. So this was kind of put in place for areas that would develop and spend a lot of money redeveloping their property and not having to do stormwater to create a benefit for the community. But what was happening inadvertently was a 0.1 acre site was being captured by this. So they were having to do very strict stormwater requirements. Again, we're not seeing that major benefit from them doing that. So we revised this manual requirement to say all requirements of this section need to be met for the entire parcel in question, but it does not apply to parcel areas that are less than 1 acre or sites with a greater than 80% existing building footprint that is not being removed. Our thought was if the building is taking up the entire parcel, you don't really have the room to do those stormwater improvements. And as long as we have other requirements to make sure you're not worsening flooding, but we want to focus on those larger parcels to get that benefit that we really think our manual is aiming to get. No change in the requirements of this section. There's 3 options that if you hit this criteria, you could meet. You could reduce the impervious area, you can do 24-hour volume control, or you could do discharge rate reduction for your entire parcel if this is triggered. And this is the last really deep dive into a more technical one. And then I'll kind of bullet list the other changes that I'm more than happy to go into detail with if you want. But the special protection area requirements. Previously, there was 2 separate SPA requirements. So to make it more clear and to remove the ambiguity, we just removed one of them and combined the 2 together because they work together anyway. So with the revision, we basically, the following design criteria shall be used for projects discharging to receiving waters within these special protection areas, but we don't want to capture the linear projects located on existing public infrastructure. So if you were just putting a sidewalk or a turn lane within an existing right-of-way, we are not going to require you to reduce the runoff of that work. Simple fact is that has a benefit to the city, and it's us providing connectivity or traffic alleviation. We also don't want to put a burden where you then have to put right-of-way aside to reduce the runoff. We still want to make sure you're not making flooding worse, but we didn't think that was an appropriate place to have them reduce. And also the money you would have to put towards the stormwater to accomplish that, you could save the city money, which could then be used for future city stormwater improvements elsewhere. Another change we made was runoff reduction requirements will only apply to parcels of 1 acre or more, similar to the redevelopment, and when a construction activity application is required. So if you have a parcel 1 acre or more and you're disturbing half an acre of that parcel, then you would be required to do the reductions. Previously, we were applying this to any parcel half an acre or more and no disturbance limit. So if you had a parcel half acre, you were doing 0.1 acre of disturbance, you would have to reduce runoff. And we just felt like that was too much with very little benefit that would be obtained from that. The runoff reduction requirements have been reduced and a simplified option have been provided. By reduced, we did not reduce the volume control requirement. We only reduced the discharge rate requirement. What we have been seeing from a lot of these projects, the benefit that the city is getting is from the volume control. So we still have the same strict volume control requirement, but we reduce the amount of discharge rate reduction that is required because that is not really what's providing the flood improvement for these projects. It's can they hold the volume of water back from the roadway to try and improve the flooding within the streets. And then we also provided a simplified option for projects that can document, if they can document no additional runoff generated from their proposed layouts. So essentially what we said was, if you in the existing conditions are fully impervious and in the proposed conditions are still fully impervious, we looked at previous projects that have met our requirements and came up with a percentage of stormwater volume provided that nets the benefits we're looking for. So we said to the development community, instead of doing these complicated computations, just provide that volume to us and in a much more simplified approach, and then we will say you are meeting the requirements. Obviously, there's a factor of safety put into that, but we look at it as a simple way for them to meet the requirements of the reductions and also a good planning tool. It'll give them an idea if they want to try it early, they can provide that volume, get their plans laid out, and if they want to do a more detailed model, they can do that down the road. We also tried to incentivize low impact development and green infrastructure. So if you use those practices, because of the fact that they're a lot easier to maintain, you don't have to reduce by such a large number. Our reductions are 20% from existing, you would go down to 15%. We also have done the same for if you're utilizing city funding. If it's a project that utilizes city funding, if we require a 20% reduction in volume, we'll let you use a 15% reduction, which might result in a smaller stormwater footprint, with the thought being that the money that the city is saving on that specific project could be used for future stormwater infrastructure projects to help flooding within that neighborhood or elsewhere. And then the last change that we made is obviously if smaller projects do have an impact, so we do want them to do something. So we say, hey, if you're smaller than an acre and you don't have to do these strict reductions, and you're increasing impervious area by 500 square feet, you still have to do these something. You don't need to provide detailed computations, but we do want you to provide something such as rain barrels or rain guarding, but the computations would just be sizing that based on your impervious area. So that's the most technical one.
Well, wait,
But
Mr. Bucci, before you move on, go back to,
yes.
what was the break point on it being an acre or more? So if I have a parcel of land that's 0.9 of an acre, then I come under limited guidelines. If I have one more, what's that, hundredth of an acre, then I come under these. Why wouldn't it be 1 acre or more?
It is 1 acre or more.
I mean, a greater than an acre, I should say, greater than an acre. Why would it be an acre or less?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough to draw that line, right? We decided on an acre because we feel like that's the parcel that gives you enough room to actually fit a manageable stormwater to meet the requirements. The difference between 1 acre or more or greater than an acre, like you said, we're touching on, you're just shifting the line slightly, I guess.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think we just made the call that if you have 1 acre, you have enough room to do a stormwater that will benefit the city.
Okay. I see Mr. Councilman Gregg has his hand up. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you go over you mentioned, so we're maintaining a storage requirement, but no longer do you have to maintain or keep the peak flow requirement below the pre-development condition.
I may have, sorry to confuse you. No, you do. So it used to be a 50% reduction in peak flow.
Oh, okay.
We changed that to a 20% reduction to match up with the 20% volume control. From talking to the engineers and the design community, all of them said that what was driving their designs was volume control, and that's what was sizing all of their practices. But in our opinion, we still do want to look at discharge rate, right? And make sure that you are bettering that so you're not just getting the water out as quickly as possible. So it's still in there, but we did reduce it.
So why did they, I mean, if volume is controlling, so then what's the point in
looking at rate?
Yeah.
I would say volume's controlling in almost every scenario, but there are unique situations based on your tailwater conditions where it could be rate controlled.
Okay.
So I just didn't want to completely eliminate that.
Gotcha. Okay. I may have another question for you tomorrow, but that's
okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pucci, you still up?
Yes. So those are the big changes that I thought worth diving into more detail. And then I kind of have a list of your other technical revisions, and this is all from feedback that we received from the design community. Water quality requirements, we really just provided additional information on acceptable computation methodologies. We had one written out. We wrote out another acceptable option for them to use to meet that. Storage recovery, we revised the language to allow stormwater systems to drain within an acceptable tolerance. We basically were saying you need to drain the entire system within 72 hours to 0.00. So we said, hey, if you're within 0.1 feet, that's good enough for us. We think that's appropriate, that a second back-to-back storm will not be an issue, which we do have them check. Self-cleaning velocities. So we've been seeing a lot of computations for this. This is for public systems. We say you have to show 2 feet per second velocity so that the pipes can self-clean. But we say if you can provide a 0.5% pipe slope, then you inherently meet that requirements. And that's just based on the computations we've been seeing. So just provide that slope on your pipe and you don't have to provide computations to support the self-cleaning velocity. The 1% storm analysis, similar to the SPA, we provided a conservative approach to address the fill displacement, which is if you're filling in a flooded area, you have to offset that. So we provided conservative assumptions they can make to meet that requirement. Culvert analysis, just more information on how they can model the culverts. Peak water surface elevation reporting. We basically did a similar thing to the storage recovery where we allow a water surface elevation increase within an acceptable tolerance. Basically, we were measuring to the 100th place, and we felt like we are still measuring to the 100th place, but just a little bit of breathing room to, allow for them to meet that requirement. And tailwater conditions, again, we gave them a conservative approach to how to determine the tailwater conditions downstream of their site that's needed to do their modeling. So those are the big one. Oh, last one I think is really important. Sorry, I almost missed it. Drainage infrastructure improvement projects. We basically saying when a project solely for drainage infrastructure improvements and it's not associated with development, you don't have to meet the standards of the sections that say you have to use a certain pipe slope, you have to have this certain water staging, all this stuff, as long as you're documenting that you're improving the stormwater conditions of the site. But if the drainage improvements are to support a development specifically, then you would have to meet those requirements. So it kind of gives some breathing room to the stormwater project saying, hey, we're not going to have you strictly adhere to these requirements, but you have to do the best you can to meet them.
Okay, Councilman Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, one other question. I think one of the questions I get a lot from folks in the land development area is and particularly out here is submerged systems. So on this 0.5% pipe slope, will we allow submerged systems if there's a 0.5% pipe slope?
So we do allow submerged systems already in our manual. We basically say if the system is submerged, you can't achieve that self-cleaning velocity because everything's underwater. So right when the sediment gets in there, it doesn't have the capabilities to wash downstream. So what we require is you to pre-treat the water before it enters our system so that no sediment is getting into the system. So that requirement, it doesn't change as a result of us saying the 0.5%. If your system is submerged, you still need to pre-treat that runoff.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that, I don't know, I think that's something I'd like to see addressed in the next year.
You kind of blanked out, Councilman. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I think that's something I'd like for us to address in the next year. We in Daniel Island is mostly submerged systems, and as many of you know, this is one of the few places that doesn't flood when we get some of these big rain events. So maybe we need to look at the pipes and see if we do have sediment building up. But
yeah, I think and maybe it's a coordination with Matt's group and how much maintenance has to be done on those systems, but definitely something we can all look into, I think, for sure.
Well, the question begs, why does it take a year to look into that?
Well, I guess for the next, for the next revision.
Well, that's 5 years from now.
No, they're saying we're going to do another. Now they're saying
Yes.
we're do a revision every year, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Our intent is
Okay.
to do it
I see.
yearly. Take the impact. We know that we'll put these changes out, and people will immediately have feedback. That's just how manual revisions work, right? So
Right.
take that feedback immediately, and then every year plan to, even if it's small changes, to incorporate those into the manual.
Thank you for that clarification. I missed that the first time.
Oh, no problem.
All right. Any other questions of committee members? Mr. Bucci, you still
Well,
move forward?
I'm done.
You're done. All right.
So, I tried to cover all the major changes. There's very minor language changes with the shift in the departments, but I think that really captures, what we're going for, giving people options, upholding our strict requirements. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, let me know. And as Councilmember Greg said, I'm more than happy to meet offline and get things in line for the next revisions and make sure we're meeting the goals of the city.
All right, great. Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, mine has less to do with new development and more to do with existing. Old line neighborhoods that didn't flood at one point, but now they are. Will we do anything in this manual to address those issues in existing neighborhoods? I know there's something with respect to new development and how it affects the old and existing neighborhoods. I'm really not talking about that. I'm talking about, hey, things are just changing. The water seems to be reclaiming certain places where, we have done filling where we shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're sort of paying the price for all that. What are we going to do about it?
I think from the manual standpoint, a lot of these are only applied when there is new development. But I think on the initial go around in 2020, there was a good effort to account for the sea level rise and the increased rainfall. So obviously we account for 2 feet in sea level rise in all of our designs. And then the rainfall we pull from NOAA data, and our plan is to, if NOAA Atlas updates their rainfall data, the manual also can update its rainfall data, which once we do it every year. But from a manual standpoint, I guess, and maybe I'm just not fully understanding, but it only applies to when a project comes in for new development. I think if there's something we're doing to improve existing flooding conditions, that might more fall under mass stormwater group.
That's right, Ron. Councilmember Gregory. I might just say, because we keep talking about new development, but this manual affects many projects in your district and within existing neighborhoods, because it's not just new development on a green field somewhere. It affects redevelopment constantly. Mm-hmm. And so from a manual perspective and from a regulatory perspective, the manual is kind of incrementally improving conditions, even in existing neighborhoods, because you're now addressing, because of the manual and the city standards, as we can on a site-by-site basis, as redevelopment happens, you're making conditions better. But as Ron was alluding to address the broader issues, whether it's small or big capital projects, that's Matt's team, of course, which is Matt Fountain, who is, because of the city and mayor and city council's efforts, has a much larger portfolio of improvements they're making than ever before in the city's history.
I understand, but it's not an answer that I can tell my folks on Gordon Street who can't come out their house for 12 hours until the water comes down.
Yeah, well, we have flooding around the city, and
I'm just putting it out there. I mean, there are some severe. I inherited in this consolidation parts of the city that have consistently flooded and been underwater. And I know we have small projects, and Matt and his team, don't get me wrong, they are doing things through our maintenance and small projects that I think is making a difference in certain areas. But we have some areas that are really not small projects. where the city really needs to start finding 40, 50, 60 million dollars, okay, to address these issues. Because it is affecting people's quality of life. I just wanted to put that on the table. It might not be the appropriate place to put it on the table, but I just wanted to use it as an excuse to put it on the table. That we've got to think about these places, not just on the peninsula, I mean, citywide, but on the peninsula, where people have been suffering 50, 60, 70 years.
You're right, Councilman. I tell you what, though, I think that kind of I agree with you. That's probably not the right spot. We need to have the discussion, but we need to have that discussion, I think, a little bit further. And specifically, I don't know that we've had discussions on Upper Peninsula. I mean, we've done a lot of discussions around the city, but maybe our small projects methodology needs to be looked at again. I mean, we didn't have a small projects methodology until Mr. Fountain came on board, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we didn't even have one. So now I think that has to probably mature, find a way to mature that. But for the purposes of carrying the action forward, I'd like to get at least a motion on the floor. So we're in the discussion phase, a motion and a second.
Move for approval and I'll add my comment on for discussion.
Okay.
Second.
All right. We're in the discussion, Mr. Mayor.
So if I may just look, I mean, Councilman Gregory brings up a good point. You bring up a good point. And let me just say that this is the result of a lot of effort, but it is still a work in progress. This needs to be able to evolve as the city's needs become more and more defined. So I think this allows for that flexibility and staff's commitment to more regularly update this on such a critical issue so that we can address issues like the ones that Councilman Gregory, you rightfully bring up. But I think this is a really impactful, pretty major first step on that front. And so I think we should support it, and with the understanding that, again, this is a work in progress.
And following up on that, Mr. Mayor, on our previous last week meeting, remember how I made mention how inland tidal flooding?
Inland flooding, yeah.
That's right. Well, this is inland tidal flooding on Upper Peninsula, and allies on this meeting, when we go out for funding in a big way, to extend obviously the battery, inland tidal flooding is just as important.
No question.
And I think I know Councilman Gregory, you're bringing that issue to bear, but I don't think the people in your district, a lot of them in my district, Councilman Mitchell's district, we have put so much, we as a city has put so much information out on perimeter protection. And to me, I think tidal flooding is equal. It's right up there, you see, because that affects so many people on the peninsula and off the peninsula. So that's why this part about going, and I thank Mr. Fountain highly, because we were not doing any of these small projects, meaning none of those older areas were even being looked at to try to fix. Okay. So now we're looking at that, and obviously we got fines. We'll find it. I'm confident we'll find it, larger dollars to be able to give the comprehensive fix. But one of the things I wanted to say is I wanted to thank the mayor for pulling this process together. For members on the committee, the process that was pulled together was members from private sector, individuals from private sector firms, some of the larger firms that you all are very familiar with, They plan some of the best in class projects around this region, if not the state. Meeting with our top stakeholders on our staff. Mr. Fountain was obviously involved with that. Obviously, Mr. Bucci, Mr. Keene. We always talk about public-private partnerships, but this is a public-private collaboration that probably will never hit the headlines. The Gilliard is going to hit the headline. The tennis center is going to hit the headlines. But getting private sector people to leave their businesses and say, hey, we've tried to work with this manual, and I see what you're trying to accomplish, but there may be a better way to approach an issue. And our staff being in an open mindset to say, you know what, let us listen to some of the hurdles that the private sector is running into. But by the same token, the private sector got a chance to listen to, well, this is what we're trying to prevent or trying to achieve. And out of that process came better practices. So, man, that has been a great process. So when we first rolled this out in 2020, I know as chair of the Public Works Division, I didn't know I know we were doing something good, but I didn't know whether we were doing the right things that could be, frankly, used to be moratoriums. And that's not what we're trying to do. So again, Mr. Keene, the mayor's the one that brought this together. He could have sat on it. He didn't sit on it. So now we got some better practices moving forward. So any more discussion, because I'm gonna call a question unless somebody has any more questions they want to come forward with.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one last thing I was going to say. Please continue to let me know what you're hearing, and like the mayor saying and Tim saying, we do want this to be, I don't want to call it a live document, but we do want to update it, more frequently. So the more information I have on what's working, what's not working, the better we can make this manual.
Well, that's great. And I tell you what, when you send that message out, in particular to the private sector, they don't feel like, because there was some intimidation for a time where people felt if they complained, then their projects would not move forward. I'm serious, man. I have people in the private sector tell me that. I mean, from several firms. So that's why it was pretty clear that, boy, we need to sit down and just at the same table and talk. And boy, some good have come out of that. So you all created that environment, and I thank you highly. With that, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor of the amendments to the 2020 Stormwater Design Manual, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, I will ask, and this is gonna have to come from the presiding officer. I can't do this, but I can't put a motion on the floor. But normally, this would wait 2 weeks to come forward to City Council. I'm asking that we bring this forward to City Council tomorrow. Now, it's not on the agenda, so it's going to take, 65% of council to have that. I think, I don't know if we got legal counsel on, it's been on this agenda advertised to the public, but I just don't see why we should wait to carry it forward. I think we should bring it forward to council meeting as part of this report and give it first reading tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Thank you for your
What does clerk of council or legal say about it? I'm for it. I just want to make sure we can.
Julia, can you take that?
Sure. We would just need to amend the agenda with a 2/3 vote, a statement of exigent circumstances. This is by ordinance, is it not? So
It is. It's
we
by
need
ordinance.
3 readings on it? Okay.
We do. So let's just gonna give it first reading. So.
Yeah, so you would just need to amend the agenda with a 2/3 vote. I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot of those tomorrow.
So exigent circumstances, that works.
Exigent circumstances, yes.
That works. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you again. Thank you, Ms. Copeland. Stormwater update, J1, Church Creek update, requested by me. Who's going to address the Church Creek update?
Yeah, I'll take that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Fountain.
So we did Windermere, we're on to Church Creek. Church Creek project updates, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mallor and Wolf Drive, those were our retrofit projects where we acquired and demolished 6 flood-prone homes with FEMA funding, then used a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant to design and permit stormwater storage and construct stormwater storage and conveyance improvements. You can see on the top right what the area looked like during some of the flooding in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. Bottom right is pictures of the completed site. We've had some really good reports from residents in this area that they have not had any structural flooding since those projects went in. We certainly haven't equaled the 2015 storm since that time, but have had some storms pretty close to the 2016, 2017, 2018 storms. So certainly an improvement to flooding in the area. Still have flooding in the roads. It's only a partial improvement, but does drain much faster, doesn't get into the homes. Bridgepoint, this was the larger site. We acquired and demolished 32 flood-prone townhomes, again with FEMA funding. This is about a 5-acre property. Using National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funding, designed and installed stormwater storage conveyance improvements. We call this an ecological park. We've presented the site a number of times. You can see the top picture, what this area looked like. Bridgepoint, the townhomes being on the left, flooding extending out into adjoining properties around the townhome community as well, as you can see. Bottom right is a picture of the completed ecological park. Builds back a wetland ecosystem that's interconnected with stormwater ponds to help store and then slowly drain out water in this area. It also will serve and does serve currently as a passive park space, but we do have a next step that we're working with the Parks Department. We have built the civil infrastructure and they are coming back to install playground equipment on top of the pads, some bathroom facilities, water fountain, walking trail improvements. That work is expected, I think they expect to complete sometime middle of next year. Crosstown Church is our last of the current projects. This is, again, a picture of the church in the top right. Many of you are familiar with this. If you're driving on Beast Ferry Road, it's the primary canal that runs under the CSX railroad and flows down into the more naturalized section of Church Creek towards Highway 61. These are the churches that line the canal property. On the other side of that canal property is the future fire training complex for the city. So this was a National Fish Wildlife Foundation design, again, of improvements here. We've worked through purchase and sale agreements with some property owners in the area to acquire both property, feasible property, and easement across wetland complexes. Those purchase sale agreements are complete. We're working through closing with those owners. Design is primarily complete and we're into permitting on the design to basically restore some of the drainage connections from that canal into these adjacent wetlands, remove some of the debris that has been accumulated in the wetlands over the years, do some wetland ecological enhancements, as well as some berming around some of the structures to allow the wetlands and storage properties to flood deeper than they currently do without harm to the buildings. That work is again funded through permitting, but we still need to come back and do the construction work, which will be funded out of the TIF. We expect to get into construction likely sometime in 2026 on these, depending on those final permitting efforts. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, you asked for an update on the TIF. Ms. Wharton, our CFO, put together the updated bonding capacity based on development to date in the area, the increments in the area, and estimates a bonding capacity of just over $11 million. That, again, will work towards the crosstown area construction, but also has available capacity for additional stormwater projects. Once we move crosstown out of design and permitting and into construction, typically in this area, we would shift on the capital improvement plan to bring a new project into preliminary engineering so that we continue that project pipeline and something's always in design and permitting and something's always in construction. With that, happy to take any questions.
Okay. Mr. Felton, that study that was done by Bob Horner group, was it Wesson and Sampson?
That's correct.
Was that the name of the firm? What was is it?
Yes.
Weston and
Yep.
Sampson?
Weston and Sampson. That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
Weston and Sampson. Any results came out of that as far as action steps that be taken in the future?
So some of these flood storage projects with Crosstown Church especially, but Bridgepoint to some extent are somewhat envisioned within that study. We did have a few other project concepts, a Hickory Farms diversion channel, a section of work over at Lake Dodder, and a section of work in the West Ashley Circle itself, as well as some tide protection under the CSX Railroad. All of those were taken into preliminary engineering, and unfortunately, none of them showed significant benefit for flood conditions in the basin.
Okay. All right. Okay, we can chat about that a little bit later. Okay, any questions
Absolutely.
from committee members on Church Creek update? Thanks a lot for pulling that information together on short notice, and thanks to Ms. Wharton also. It's good to know some money's finally coming into the TIF. What's the actual name of that TIF?
I believe it is the Church Creek
Basin tip, Church Creek tip.
All right. Okay.
TIF. Yeah.
All right. J2, Forest Acres Phase 2, change order.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to try to go
Sure.
backwards in my presentation without making everyone sick. So this is a change order for Forest Acres project. You'll probably remember back one of the very first change orders of the project was a cost reduction, $796,000, where we worked with the contractor to remove some of the more aggressive slope stabilization methodologies, came up with a couple of different approaches, looking to do cost reduction on the construction project, while still keeping, of course, the slope stable and high quality. This change order is to add back in just over $128,000 for one area where the slope has not been able to be stabilized with those revised methods. So we are going to have to go and add some riprap basically to support that toe. Still end up with a net savings of $667,000. Was a really good collaboration between Gulfstream, the contractor, Thomas Hutton, the engineering firm, and the city project managers, and coming up with some different approaches. But whenever you do an aggressive cost reduction, you always have the chance of some increase, and we knew that going in. So that's what this final change order is. Other than this, this is the last of the punch list items. As you've mentioned, we've had this completed for quite some time. After this, all we'll have is potentially a zero-out change order, assuming this all stabilizes properly.
Listen, the net change orders are positive. I'm used to net change orders being in the other direction. So, and thank you for all your help on that. Any questions from committee members? Thank
Does
you.
this need action?
Excuse me?
Does this need action for approval?
Yes, it does. It still is a
You're right, it's a change order. You're right.
increase to the construction contract, even though the net with the other change order is still a negative.
Let's carry the motion anyway.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that change order? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye. Any opposed? All righty. K1, miscellaneous business, 56 State Street. Who's going to address that one?
I think I can probably address it, but Joy, you might, Ms. Copeland, you might need to back me up if I get some of the details wrong.
Absolutely. Do you want me to share the rendering showing the undergrounding on that spot, or you want to just hold
Yeah,
on?
that's fine. So this came about on with the hotel that has already been approved and is ready to start construction, where the old Magic Market or Little Cricket used to be on Cumberland and State Street.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the issue that they ran into is that the Dominion power lines that run along run down Cumberland Street would be right off of their building, and so they ran into it was almost impossible for them to deal with the logistics of moving those power lines. So, the preference, of course, would be to bury it. And when you look at all of the power lines that run down Cumberland, it looks almost like a third world country. So what we've been doing is working with that property owner and other property owners along Cumberland to not only bury the lines here, but work to get all of the lines buried from really down to Concord over to where the new Four Seasons Hotel would be, and make this a much more attractive thoroughfare for pedestrians and still have vehicular traffic, but really reimagine Cumberland Street. And we're doing a similar effort, which you'll hear more about in the upcoming weeks, with regards to Market Street and taking all those power lines underground and looking at redesigning a lot of the public realm there. Of course, doing this in partnership with the businesses that line those streets, and having them, of course, contribute towards that expense and coordinating. So this has been the result of a lot of different meetings. This group would like to go ahead and get started and are willing to fund their pro rata share, or at least half. Or I guess, Julia, they would fund it all up front, correct? And then we would reimburse them out of the non-standard service agreement funds.
So if we add them to the list, Dominion would pay 50, and the city they would draw from the city's account 50%, and they would reimburse us with the cash to cover the city share.
Right. So it wouldn't be anything. It would be a temporary bridge, I guess, for us. As it relates to the non-standard service agreement, I mean, this is primarily, as we all are aware, focused and we want to prioritize neighborhoods. But it's proving to be, I don't think I have to tell you all, very difficult to get all needed signatures and all transformer locations in neighborhoods. So we remain, and I want to be very clear about this, we remain very committed to prioritizing neighborhoods on this. But if we can, while we're waiting on neighborhoods that are on the list and priority, while we're waiting on those signatures, if we can bridge another project to get power lines buried, I think it's a smart use of public funds that are kind of just sitting there waiting to be tapped. And I don't have to tell you all either how expensive these undergroundings the cost of them just continues to go up. So this would, again, be a short-term bridge of the funds, while the developer would ultimately end up paying for it, our share of it. And then the other component of this that weighs into this conversation is we are in the middle of discussions with Dominion about expanding the non-standard service agreement, allowing for additional number of projects and additional money from Dominion for this. So all in all, I think this is a very positive step forward. None of it's finalized, of course. We need to be bringing it back through this committee as we work through those details. But I got to say hats off to Dominion for working with us, and I think we're going in a good direction. So, Julia, anything you want to add to that?
I think you did a great job.
It is 6 o'clock. I'm
Gold star.
I'm fading a little bit. Councilman Seekings has his hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good. I didn't see it. Councilman
Thank
Seekings.
you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chairman Waring. So what is the ask specifically on this particular item?
Right now, I believe it is that we would allow them to be to submit towards be an applicant for the non-standard service agreement. I mean, because normally the list right now is full.
And it's 4 and it's capped.
It's capped, right? So we're not really, I guess, Julia, we're not really kicking anybody off, but the 4 that are on there right now do not have all the needed signatures or locations. And is that correct?
That is correct. They've already gone through and paid for the design phase of this and gotten the easements necessary. So this would be added to the construction list.
Right. There we go.
So it's fully designed.
Yes.
Correct.
They're ready to go.
it goes off the design list, so we can still put more on the design list if we expand it. This will not occupy a space in the design list.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I think, Mr. Mayor, that's important as we talk about expanding the design list and looking at the non-standard service fund and how we actually get projects in line. I mean, Ansonboro being a perfect example, it has been a slow road to get Ansonboro going. It's a bigger project. We're one property away from getting all the signatures we need. So I just want to make sure we're not slowing anything up that's been sitting there in the wait line for a decade or more.
Yeah, we're very respectful of particularly Ansonboro. You're right; they've been very patient. And we one of the things that we are looking at, though, just so y'all are aware, is figuring out ways to make it more achievable for these neighborhoods. I mean, if they could, like, you know, doesn't necessarily in the future need to be the entire neighborhood. It can be one street. We're just working through those different options to make it more feasible based on the lessons that we've learned to date. And so a lot of work still needs to be done on that, those details, but I just wanted to let you all know that we're trying to make this an easier process so that we can get more power lines buried.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, anything that we can do on the non-standard service side with Dominion to make it easier to get on the list, get designed, and get in queue to the extent there's funding would be incredibly helpful to many people out there who are looking to do projects similar to this. And by the way, this is one that's sort of right on the edge of both commercial and residential. And as you look to the market, that literally will be a combination of commercial and residential that will be to the benefit of so many people. So huge kudos as we can move forward, but expanding that list and allowing designs to go forward so we're ready when we've got money is something, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, I think that we can have a large hand in and would encourage us to do so.
Yeah, agreed.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
Well,
One thing I
you.
would like to add, Chairman, just before we keep going, is on the MOU itself. I would ask that we amend the language of the MOU to remove telecom or telecommunications wires. That's a separate agreement that they're going to have to, the developer's going to have to enter into with the telecommunications companies. So if someone could just note that amendment prior to adopting the or approving the MOU, that would be great. Thank you.
Do we do that now?
Is that something we need to do today?
Yes, if you move to approve the MOU or authorize the mayor, I would just ask that you approve it as amended.
So I'll make the motion to approve the MOU as drafted with the amendment to remove the telecommunications language.
Second.
Probably moving second. Any more discussion on that item? On that MOU? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Well, I think that brings us to closure. Any final comments?
Just one more thing. I think there's two items on the agenda. One is to actually add it to the NSSF list as well as the MOU. So I think there needs to be a second vote there.
Move for approval on the second item.
Second.
Probably moving seconded. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
just
sir.
a quick question. Weston is still on schedule for the underground wiring in Hampton Park Terrace, right?
I don't know. Okay.
We
anybody
can
have-
check on that for you, Councilman Greer. I think it is, but we'll confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna give you a quick call after. Are you going to a meeting after this?
I don't know what my schedule is.
Let me call because
Okay.
6:30 meeting to see whether I'm supposed to be there or not.